In our last episode, Devin and I took you through the latter half of our top 10 lists and counted down from 10 to 6. Now it's time for the big finale, where we reveal the series that truly stole our hearts and claim our coveted top 5 spots.
My number 5 favorite anime is Chainsaw Man, which, very similar to Jujutsu Kaisen. I think if you took out a lot of the details, it's essentially the same plot in a lot of ways. And where Jujutsu Kaisen is this like beautiful, the most refined shonen, sophisticated shonen anime you can have, Chainsaw Man is like a very nuanced shonen anime, and it's the depth to Chainsaw Man and the way that the story is delivered through its animation, through its storytelling, through its characters, through its fight scenes, is there's just a lot of depth that I find is really fascinating with Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man is pretty gruesome, but as a child who grew up loving horror movies, I think it suits a lot of what I like. And from what I understand, I think there's a lot of horror elements within horror, like the genre of horror in Chainsaw Man, which I guess I appreciate. Yeah, Chainsaw Man's kind of new to me though. I started watching it maybe when it came out, I started watching it. I don't know that I was enthralled, but this year I found a huge love for it. And I often come back to thinking about Chainsaw Man when I'm just doing like obscure things on the bus.
Vacuuming.
Getting a physical.
I wondered what you were gonna say.
Buying stamps. I'm like,
there's like, sir, you're like,
what makes a chainsaw devil? I think the series is really fun, and also I love a series that sort of treats its audience like it's very considerate of its audience. I'm not one for sort of like the sort of like schlop of like shonen anime that is just sort of delivered nowadays. I find it quite, it's not really my taste anymore. But Chainsaw Man gives me something that like I don't know that I've never seen before. What do you like?
I actually love this show. It
Yeah.
almost made my list. I had to do it like, actually when I asked you to do this video with me, there was an element of me immediately realizing that I'm not great at ranking things or picking like favorites. So there was a lot of like Sophie's choice going on about what was going to be on my list. Chainsaw Man was so close. I love this show.
Yeah.
I feel like the first season is so good. Like you said, even with a shonen anime, and maybe starting off with sort of maybe stories we've kind of seen before, I feel like it sort of trims the fat. There's sort of no, it gets kind of right into the good stuff in the show. And I think sort of midway through the first season, it gets really, really good.
Yeah.
Like right through the finale. Again, I've sort of brought up on those shows kind of like Buffy and shows like that, where like we see stories that sort of build to like this big sort of battle at the end.
That's
I'm a
right.
sucker for that.
Yeah.
And the whole first season of Chainsaw Man does that really, really well. And again, similar to me as Dorohedoro, it's like, it's a bit more gruesome, a bit more violent than I normally go for, but the story and everything else is so good. And the animation, once again, is so good. That sort of all that stuff can be forgiven.
That's my number 5. David, what's your number 5?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. I think this and Moribito I both found because I was Googling like anime with a great female lead.
Yeah.
Which is hard to find.
Yeah.
This show is called Witch Hunter Robin. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I've seen it. I like it.
Yeah, this show for me, again, was sort of what I've described about what I really enjoy, which is like these sort of stories that have some standalone episodes, but really they're more sort of building to something bigger. And what I love about this show is that like right from the get-go, you sort of get like that mystery. I mean, I love witchy stuff anyway, but you get that sort of mystery from the beginning, but right away it's sort of inferred that there's some deeper conspiracy going on. And I'm a sucker for that.
Yeah.
So I feel like the first few episodes, again, are like a lot of these animes that have like 24, 25 episodes. It takes a little bit to get going, but you kind of know there's something going on behind the scenes. And I think it's around, I enjoy the whole thing, but I think it's about midway through the first season where it has one of those cool plot changes where this whole story kind of changes. And like it sort of went in a direction I didn't expect. And just kept like the mystery and all the character stuff so interesting the whole time. And one of those shows, again, that sort of wraps up at the end. It's like this satisfying ending, even though there could be more, there never has been. So it kind of feels like this nice, perfect little capsule of a show.
If I remember correctly too, Witch Hunter Robin is like somewhere around the early 2000s.
Yeah, I think it's like 2000, 2002.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the animation, it's within that world of animation where like a lot of anime had there's a lot of really beautiful anime that was coming out that didn't necessarily, sometimes the characters leaned a little bit more, they emulated like real humans more than they did like an anime aesthetic in a way. It started leaning that way. Also, there was a bit of a gothic, like goth or gothic kind of like theme that was sort of like on a lot of creative things around that time. And I think Witch Hunter Robin has a little bit of that. Like it's a little bit like the colors are quite muted. There's quite a bit of a serious tone to the series, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels very much like, it's interesting because it's set in Tokyo, like it's set in Japan, but it has a very like European Gothic feel. And I don't really know anything about sort of Japanese culture revolving around like witchcraft or witches or what they believe, but it's interesting to have this show set in Japan with like a cast of Japanese characters, but it's very much based around like her coming from Europe and then stuff that went on in history about the witch trials. So it's sort of like, and then sort of like a sci-fi show with the sort of like organization that she's working for. So it just sort of like blends these things together that again, maybe shouldn't work, but they just work really, really well.
My number favorite 4 anime is very different than Chainsaw Man.
You said my number favorite 4 anime.
Let me try that again. My favorite anime in the 4th spot is
giving you variety.
Very different than Chainsaw Man. It's Cardcaptors or Cardcaptor Sakura.
Wow, nothing to say, just period.
I think it speaks for itself. I love Cardcaptors.
Okay.
Please keep your opinions to yourself. Here's the thing. If we want to play the game of like, oh, what anime power do you want to have? The boys in their brains, they want to conquer everything. So they say, I want the most OP guy. I'm like, have some fun, babe. It's not about killing everything. So my favorite power would be Sakura's magic wand and cloud cards that she has.
Okay.
I unfortunately watched not unfortunately.
I thought you just wanted it because she has all those different outfits. She has like an outfit every episode.
I forgot about the
Which
outfits.
I didn't know until I watched it recently.
But that's also really fun too. Those outfits, so fun. The idea of like having a roster of cards that could do something different, something about that really appeals to me. I think I was big on like the sort of card trend within the early 90s. And when Cardcaptors was dubbed and brought to North America, it was changed a lot to sort of appeal to like a boy audience. So it became a little bit more intense. Yeah. There's sort of I don't even know how to describe it, but when I rewatched the sub, it's a little bit more like a Clamp series where it's like a little bit more slice of life, you know, it's a little bit easygoing. The dub that I was introduced to, which I fell in love with, still very hard to find nowadays. It's a lot more, there's trouble afoot all the time, and that also worked for me at the time. I like Cardcaptor Sakura because it coming off of the sort of Sailor Moon train and wanting anime that wasn't just about, or just cartoons that weren't just about like boys being strong or men being superheroes. It gave me sort of these like girlies who were like also solving problems and being heroes in a way, which I think you can attest to that with like stories where like Buffy or even with like Charlie's Angels. Like,
Yep.
I want women and girlies who can like save the world and kick ass too, you know? There's lots to say about Cardcaptor Sakura. I really, really like the series. Yeah, but you've seen it.
I mean, I just watched it recently, preparing for our chat. I think the show is, I mean, it feels so queer-coded to me. And like, I feel like it's funny that you say that. I watched the Japanese version with English subtitles. So I feel like I got more of that slice of life thing. So definitely not something that I would be like, oh, I'm gonna keep watching this. But I watched like a good chunk of it, and I have to say the character design is super cool, particularly like her cards and like the creatures that come from them. Like the design, again, I was like, I don't know if this is some genius who was just selling these cards to kids, but the designs on those cards are stunning. So yeah, I think the show is like, again, I think one of those shows you did maybe if you discover it as a child and now you watch it with nostalgia, it's so much fun. Discovering it for the first time as an adult, maybe not something I would keep watching, but again, I think I can see why people love it so much. And this is the other show as like that goes hand in hand for me with Yu-Gi-Oh! That goes hand in hand for me with your choice, Yu-Gi-Oh! That I feel like this show was probably a big inspiration for you. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It absolutely was. Yeah, I think it was a huge inspiration for me. But you're right, like the animation's gorgeous, like the cards and the aesthetic are really, really fun too. Huge inspiration for me as far as like what fantasy stories can look like.
Hey, I can't wait to talk about my number.
Hey,
4.
Sorry, 5, 4.
I'm excited to talk about this because Devin and I have talked about this show before, and I know that he hates it, and I love it.
Hate?
And that show is Claymore. That was affirmation of my statement.
I have some good things to say about Claymore.
I don't know why, but I love this show. I only found it again, I don't know, maybe like 5-6 years ago. But again, that's sort of like, they got me with like the female warrior thing, but there's something about this show I just love. I feel like, I don't know if it sort of would be considered a shonen anime, I don't know. But it sort of is not only the story, again, I love a sucker for like the clandestine organization and mystery, and we get that from the beginning. We know there's something going on, that, you know, there's secrets to unfold. But I sort of love the main character, and I love, as the show develops, the cast of characters we meet along the way, and particularly the design of like a lot of like the demons and the things that they encounter, and when they, without giving away too much, when some of these creatures like transform or grow into other things, it feels like the animation of the design is so cool. And again, it's another one of those shows for me that it's like, we just know it's building and building on a show, and then we get like a pretty epic giant battle at the end. And I love all those things.
Yeah.
I will say that it's confusing to know who's who, if I had a complaint.
Because they're all blondies, right?
There's something about the animation which I find so funny, which is like, they're gonna all be thin white women.
Yeah.
And at the end, they've all got like very basic, I mean, no shade, they got basic white lady names.
Yeah.
And at the end, when they're all battling, you do watch it like this. Who's that? And who just that? And is she? But overall, I love it. I've watched it a few times, and this is the show that really makes me want to start reading manga, because I would love to know where the story goes. The show just ended, and it is like, we get sort of the finale to the battle, but we don't get an ending to the whole story.
Really?
And so I would love to find out what happens to our friend Claire.
Well, I know Claire Moore. First name Claire, last name Moore. If I remember correctly, the manga is beautiful.
It is, because I feel like I've looked at some of it, and the designs of the characters and the demons and monsters are taken directly from the manga.
Well, and this is where I'm always, I think I've always loved animation when I was younger. Going to animation school, the very first thing I asked one of the second years was like, what did you feel like you learned about this? And what was told back to me was like, it's going to ruin watching anime for the rest of your life because you study all of the back end that it takes to make animation. So you can appreciate really high quality animation, like what it takes to make something look really smooth or seamless, or like a battle, like a fight choreography and those sorts of things, or keeping things on model. There's so much to it. And then when things are a little bit more like less polished, it can be really frustrating because you're like, don't waste my time.
I get it if it's like your industry and you know more of what you're looking at. And I can appreciate their scenes. They do have those things where it goes into be ashamed of yourself. There's those scenes where it goes into like battle sequences and it ends up just being like, I don't know how to describe it, but where it's just like a line and like because again, these people are supposed to like move at super speeds and they don't know how to like, maybe they don't have the budget to really illustrate that. So I get it. But I also want to say you're wrong.
Thanks, that's your number 4.
I love it, you hate it, moving on.
I don't.
He hates it.
I don't know that I was watching Attack on Titan when it first came out, but I've become such a huge fan and have rewatched it several times. I am a sucker for any story that kind of has a big mystery that's unfolding, but also deals with like, can articulate a tension really well. And I think Attack on Titan is a masterclass in that.
Attack on Tension.
Attack on Tension, as I call it. As my group chat is called. There's so much to say about Attack on Titan that I really, really like. It's a story that is very moving in a lot of ways. It's a story that has, like, I think, great action. It has a great mystery. It has really great characters that you fall in love with. It ends up becoming a story where the sort of the lens on who is the protagonist or antagonist gets very like blurry and skewed, and all characters you can empathize with all characters, and I think that is a good form of storytelling, is when you can empathize with even the enemy, for example.
From what I understand, it becomes more almost political, right?
It becomes incredibly political, and in fact, if I understand correctly, it's very related to some like real world conflicts that are happening right now. But Attack on Titan, it's just like, I think it's such a yummy series. I think it's like a really, it just does everything so well, in my opinion. It's not a perfect series, but it's great. It's one of the few series too where like I will listen to the intro songs while I'm walking around.
Yeah, when you're not thinking about Chainsaw Man.
It's just when I'm not thinking about Chainsaw Man, you can catch me listening to some weird German anime intro. But that's my favorite, number 3. What do you like about Attack on Titan?
I can't get into Attack on Titan.
That's all.
And I don't know why, because everyone I know loves this show. I don't love, I think, a lot of the character design. And particularly for me, I've heard that maybe it gets explained why they look like this, but I haven't watched that far. But the giants that just look kind of like creepy people, it doesn't do it for me.
Well, I think a lot of what you like about anime is like there's a little bit more flair. And I will say Attack on Titan doesn't necessarily have a lot of, it's an exciting series, and what I mean by flair is like it's aesthetically it's quite beige, it's quite gray, it's a little green here and there, but like it doesn't really have a lot of like, it does have great female protagonists, but it doesn't necessarily have that kind of like magical element that might elevate the series. I don't know that it has a lot of elements that you gravitate towards, so I can understand why you wouldn't.
I think for me it's also the setting. I am a sucker for things like animes and stuff that are set in Tokyo or in cities that I know, because I think that's something that is always done very, very well. And so sort of like this more European setting, the characters, I don't know, I've tried a few times and I feel like I'm gonna get in trouble for this because people love this show. But I've tried to stick with it and I just can't. My number 3 is Black Lagoon. You don't know it. by the vacant look in your eyes.
Stop. I promise you, I know of things. Oh, okay. This is very you.
It's very me. Look, that woman, very me. I do love this show. Again, it's another one of those shows, I feel like I've been saying the same thing, but it's one of those shows that the first time I tried to watch it, I couldn't really get into it. And I think it's often kind of sold as like, I've seen it come up on multiple lists of like, if you like Cowboy Bebop, you'll probably like Black Lagoon. I think because it's sort of the same idea of like this ragtag group of people sort of thrown together in sort of extreme circumstances. But I would say that it's actually not really like Cowboy Bebop. Like the characters are different, the story is so different. And once you get into it, it's this really fun exploration of all these different characters in this, I believe it's called Roanapur, in this island that's full of like criminals and pirates and all these different like criminal organizations. And again, sort of goes from standalone episodes to building like these bigger stories, especially as the show gets further and further along. So I love it. I love that like it's one of those great like world buildings, I think, where there's all these different amazing characters with all these like crazy backgrounds. It's really solid from like start to finish. And it's one of those shows, kind of like TV shows that I grew up with, that they do really well. It's like those cool characters that kind of like pop up and then we see them again in like a few episodes. Like sort of this, they're not like regulars, but they sort of come and go. And I feel like as the show continues, it's so fun that this like weird island has all these, you know, like a cast of characters that they're sort of like hidden all over the place, and they have all these interesting stories. And I love it. I can like watch it over and over again.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I know that it also has like an aesthetic, because I mean, when I'm watching anything, I'm sort of analyzing an aesthetic. I'm analyzing like the color choices, or like the like, are these characters a little bit more like mature? Are they a bit more like kid-like in a way, or whatever? And I think that it reads very like early 2000s in a lot of ways. I've seen Black Lagoon constantly.
As in pictures of it.
But
you've never watched an episode.
I've seen a picture or two on the internet. David, I'm ready to tell you about my number 2 top favorite anime.
Please.
A newer anime on my list, but one that has greatly impressed me, and that is Frieren Beyond Journey's End. When Frieren was introduced to me, David, it was one of those animes where both of us both of us have had animes where we're like not really into it first. This was one of those animes. It is, I've been such an audience of like very exciting, very thrilling, like non-stop action kind of animes. I want my attention to be piqued. Frieren is such a slow burn that it didn't appeal to me at first, but I have watched it, I think twice now since it's finished, and it's the first anime I recommend to anybody, especially if you want something that is like outside of like a simple shonen realm. It handles its characters so well, but I think the part that I think is the most refreshing is that it does something I really love. It plays within the world of fantasy, sorcery, sword, that kind of like world, but it is really good at detailing these characters that are very grounded and have a lot of character to show off. Once again, give me a female character. Give me a character that's a woman who is the protagonist or is a main character that is a lot more than just her gender. Frieren does that so well. A lot of the characters do that in the series. But my favorite part of Frieren is it blends a world of, as they're going on this journey, it blends this world of both this character, this main protagonist Frieren, who is ageless, who has lived for like thousands of years, and sort of her companions who are humans who live very short lives. And I think it not only within the fictional story, but it ties back to this world of like, humans live a very fragile life, and that we need to like cherish certain things within like the human world, I suppose you could say it. That really moved me. I think it's a really, really good story for multiple reasons. And when Frieren's ready to like kick butt, Frieren kicks butt. Frieren's OP.
What does that mean?
Overpowered.
Okay.
And we love that. What is your impression of Frieren?
When I first started watching Frieren, I felt like this. This show is stunning.
Yeah, valid. And that's valid.
It is a beautiful show.
Yep.
And I love the cast of characters. Like when it started, I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to see where this goes. But I think I watched 7 or 8 episodes and I felt like it didn't really go anywhere. I mean, I appreciate, I think a lot of people do like, because people love this show. And I think that I can see where a lot of people love sort of like, it feels more, I think maybe when I went in, I was expecting like an action. It feels very much like something that looks like it's coming off like a cast of Final Fantasy or something. So I was expecting that sort of like epic battle, epic journey. And I guess maybe that was the wrong mindset to go in with, because it feels almost like a slice of life show set in a fantasy world.
Absolutely.
And so I like the characters. I think the show is beautiful. The animation is stunning. But the story just didn't catch me. I kept waiting for like, I didn't see the OP. I kept waiting for like a battle or a fight or something, and I just felt like we didn't get there. This show is probably on maybe most top 10 lists you find about people's anime on the internet. It's Cowboy Bebop. I think this show is so cool, and I think like so many people my age, 28.
28. Okay.
You play along. This is my channel.
28 is right.
I feel like a lot of people my age, this was almost like the first introduction to a lot of people for anime in the West, from what I know. Like, I feel like a lot of, we had Sailor Moon, and there were some like shows maybe that were, I feel like edited and changed to be sent for children.
That's right.
In the West. But this I think was, I could be wrong, but I think it's one of the first anime that was sort of aired in the West for an adult audience. And I think it sort of brought anime, or brought the attention to anime to a lot of people. And I didn't watch it when it first was on. I only discovered this, I'd say maybe like when I started getting into anime, maybe about 10 years ago. But I love this show. Again, it's got sort of that interesting cast of characters who are like sort of wacky and kooky, but they've all got these really thoughtful, cool background stories and things that we get to explore over the course of the series. And again, another series that is like the full 20 some episodes and just tells like a really beautiful story, and then it's done. There's no continuation, there's no moving forward, but I just love it.
And Cowboy Bebop, kind of like Evangelion, is so, they kind of, I feel like they're sort of within the same sort of like window of time, and they're also so beloved.
I mean, the style of animation is similar in some ways, I would say, and just so stunning. Like you watch it now, and it's another one of those shows that it like animation style, you could tell me that it was new and I would believe you.
Yeah, and I want to be like transported into a different world. I feel like Cowboy Bebop does that quite well. I will say, and this is one of my biggest sins in life, is I'm a huge fan of movies, film, series, you name it. I've never seen Titanic. I don't care anymore. But I've never seen Cowboy Bebop, and I know how important it is, and I think that's why I've been holding off, because I'm like, I'll wait for the perfect time, and I know there will
not even an episode.
I know so much about Cowboy Bebop, but not from watching the series. But I guarantee once I start watching it, I will be like, you fool. My number one favorite anime is Sailor Moon. Ooh. I think to this day, I don't know an anime that has consecutively influenced me as long as Sailor Moon has. When I was a kid in the 90s and Sailor Moon was released to like North American TVs, it was heavily dubbed. And I still find that dub quite charming. Having rewatched the series in its original language of Japanese and with subtitles, I have an added appreciation for it, and that's kind of what I mean. It's like over time, I just kind of keep getting these like little bits and pieces that I find so admirable about the series. But I adore the original 90s animation. I think that really influenced me in a lot of ways too. I'd like to see girlies and women like solving problems and kicking ass. That was always really appealing to me. Sailor Moon did that so well. I also really liked sort of I liked, there's so much about the series that I liked. I liked the costume design. I liked the sort of the world that they play within. I liked, it was at a time too when I think a lot of the series I had back then were like, which I love, but like a Transformers or like a G.I. Joe. They're very masculine coded sort of cartoons for kids. Sailor Moon was very refreshing in multiple ways.
I mean, I don't even know if we had a lot of series from that time, like from the West, where there would be like a female lead for like an animated show. Like they would be like, maybe if it was a team, but not like a lead.
Very few and far between as well. But yeah, Sailor Moon being like, and Sailor Moon was like a huge wave. I don't think that we would have the huge success now of like Jujutsu Kaisen movies and Chainsaw Man movies and Crunchyroll being super popular and anime everywhere if we didn't have Sailor Moon. Like Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball set the foundation early because it was appealing to two audiences. I liked them both when I was younger, but that also paved the way for like the big three of like Bleach, Naruto, and what's the other one?
Bleach? Oh, One Piece. No?
And One Piece, yeah. Sailor Moon did a lot for culture. Sailor Moon did a lot for me. I still to this day think that my aesthetic, even when I'm drawing as like an illustrator, I'm influenced so much about like, what did I love about Sailor Moon? Sometimes that bleeds into the work that I'm creating a lot of times.
One of the things I found really fascinating about your list when we agreed to do this video was that I feel like a lot of your list is something that maybe you grew up with or you were enjoying as a kid, whereas for me, a lot of what I've gotten into or been influenced by has been as an adult. So Sailor Moon as a kid was always sort of like, I knew the characters and I knew bits and pieces, but I'd never really watched it. And again, I think the version that we got over here was sort of dubbed and changed. So rewatching it now or watching it, you know, with purpose to do this video, it's such a good show.
Such a good show.
I mean, I think like the animation is stunning. Like I can't get over sort of like, I've said this about a lot of these shows, but the backgrounds and the settings and the colors, it's such like a mood that I feel like can't really be replicated.
No.
Like there's nothing really like it in any other anime. No. And I think the characters are great. I think it's great to see like all female led crew. And I think one of the best things about the show is the villains. There's constantly like a lot of shows bring on like a villain and then if they leave, the ones that come up after it, you're kind of like, whatever. Yeah, totally. But this kind of has such a great cast of like characters that keep changing.
I think I used to get really annoyed with Sailor Moon as time went on because I was like, she's not doing anything. And as a child, I couldn't understand why she wasn't solving problems sooner. And as an adult, I understood that like she is a lot of the emotional base where she like fighting wasn't necessarily in her nature. Caring for people was, and that often is like determining her decisions in a lot of ways. And now I appreciate that so much more as an adult than I did when I was younger. And it's just the way that the series kind of keeps giving to you the more that you pay attention to it. Like Sailor Moon is almost like I think for a lot of people in North America, they could all sort of speak to Sailor Moon in a certain ways, or people around our age in a lot of ways, because of like what it did for culture in a way. But the more you look into Sailor Moon, the more impressive and important it is, I think.
My number one show is Ghost in the Shell, standalone complex.
Classic.
I love this show. I love the character of the Major and just everything about the show. To me, like the world, the sci-fi, there's been a lot of iterations of this story, but this series in particular gets very much into like politics and sort of, kind of stuff we have to worry about now, AI and like, all those like technological advancements, and I just find that everything is handled so well. The action is great, the character building is great, and I feel like I have no notes. I feel like it's a show that I don't have anything that I feel like needs to be improved. It's good from start to finish. I love it.
Ghost in the Shell is, I think, kind of like Cowboy Bebop. It would be really high up for a lot of people. I think also Ghost in the Shell came in a time where anime was garnering more popularity in North America, and I think that people have always wanted more sophisticated cartoons, for lack of a better term, and we just really didn't have a lot of them like post 2000s. And Ghost in the Shell, I think, did that for a lot of people. Like it sort of introduced a world of like, hey, you can have like the sci-fi that so many people love. We can have that. We can have that in animation. Anime and animation does something where you can tell stories that you just can't tell in the same way in live action. I think Ghost in the Shell is a great, and it's animated so beautifully too. It's
such a stunning show. I mean, I feel like they've had so many versions of it that are all done so well in their own way. And I could be wrong, but from what I understand, I think Standalone Complex follows maybe the manga more than maybe like the movie or stuff did. I could be wrong. But anyway, the series, I just love it. Yeah, I love the characters, the animation, action, drama, suspense. It gives me all I need.
Do you remember when you watched it the first time? Do you remember like where you were or what that felt like?
I can remember sort of this time like where I was just getting into anime as an adult, and I think because a part of me always felt that anime was always sort of like the more goofy, over the top kind of stuff. So finding this world of like the more serious, and so my first introduction was when I watched the original movie, which I loved. I think the first time I tried to watch it, I was a bit confused. But now when I watch it, I just think, again, the animation is stunning. And so then watching the movie and then finding out that there were other series and then more of a world to explore. And this series, I could watch it all the time. So good.
Oh, I didn't know that you liked Ghost in the Shell as much as you do. But you articulate it really well. I think that's so much of Ghost in the Shell is like super fun. I think it is also a series that like, it may be several years, but like it does kind of keep coming back in a way too. Like there's a huge like love for Ghost in the Shell. Like fans really do love it.
I think it does kind of maybe what you talked about with Frieren too, like in a very different way, but because of the advancement element of like what they can do to their bodies and stuff, there is a big talk about like humanity and what that means, like what it means to be human versus like, or these beings that can stay alive forever, or there's a lot to explore, but it just is a very cool, I feel like on a lot of levels it sort of checks all the boxes.
Yeah. That's great.
And that is my number one. And there you have it. There's our top 10 lists. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. And please tell Devin that you disagree with his choices.
I love Claymore.
Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.